Hey guys, I'm Sean. Welcome to Running Things. I'm an athlete rep and an athletics writer. I've been a long-time contributor to Tempo Journal. We're going to have a chat with On Athletic Club's Olympic finalist, Ollie Hoare. Let's get into it. So for anyone that's not familiar with Ollie, he did spend his collegiate career at the University of Wisconsin. And look, it was a bit of a rough start, but did end in pretty spectacular fashion. I was sort of doing a bit of research for this interview and putting a few things together, and I noticed that 2016 NCAA cross, you 32:06, definitely not a bad time for 10K. Most of us would be relatively happy with it, but right behind you had Michael Cerrone, who can run a little bit now for 800, but you did manage to knock off a manual career. So you might have been 227th, but he was 249th. So it was a bit of a rough day at the office for the UTEP boys. But I guess taking people through, obviously, you had huge success at Wisconsin and were massively successful on the track, both indoor and outdoor. You had that interesting little period just sort of moving into a post-collegiate phase where you were racing in Tennessee, and you had these races set up where you would basically absolutely send it through 800 metres to a K, hang on for grim death, and that's when we really started to see your PB tumble. I feel like we've seen that style sort of persist into this year. Obviously, you were in a bit of an interesting space with not being able to make it back for the national champs. I guess if you could just run people through how you felt you made that evolution from being a college athlete where you were very often racing for place to now moving into this scene where, you're at a Diamond League or you're at a race that is going to be quick, or you've got paces everywhere. How do you feel your mindset's changed moving into this professional sort of scene?
It's dramatic with the situation that I came from when I started at Wisconsin. I think particularly for people that go through the college system, they have a lot of growth in that area. You're on your own, and for internationals in particular, you're very far away from family and from that support structure you're used to. So you're kind of thrown into the fire a little bit there, and to see if you'll survive. And for me in particular, I learned a lot and made a lot of mistakes, and I think the growth from that led me to gain some more confidence, gain some more structure, some more advice, letting people around me that were positive influences in my training, particularly at Wisconsin, and then moving into the professional career. Near the end of my Wisconsin senior year, obviously COVID-19 hit, and I didn't really have the opportunity to kind of complete my collegiate career as best as I wanted to. So there was that brief period where I was in great shape. I think a lot of people were in great shape and really wanted to produce results, and then we just had this kind of blackout stage. So then that transition to professional career, I kind of was able to take a lot of what I was able to learn from Wisconsin with training, becoming a NCAA champion as a sophomore, and then learning from making mistakes even after that, and joining a group like On and the OAC, growing and developing under Dathan. Really it just took it to another level, not just physically, but mentally, being able to be capable to deal with races like that. I mean, I spent a lot of my time watching Diamond Leagues growing up, wishing I could even be a part of that field. And then all of a sudden, I had the opportunity this year to run in multiple and into the Diamond League final against some great Australians. And we were kind of really dominating that scene. So for me, it was just a mental mindset of the belief that you can do it, the consistency in training. I think it all changed, and it was a dramatic impact on me during COVID. I think you train hard. There's nothing else really to do other than to avoid people and train and stay at home and really think about, okay, the next race you get might be the only opportunity you get for a long time. So those races like in Tennessee and then moving forward, every race we got was a very, very exciting opportunity to be able to race again, but also a rare opportunity just in case something else happened and we were locked back down again. So we took every race as we could, and we put out paces. We ran hard from the gun, and we made it kind of a base of how fast can you go and how long can you hold it. And then that mentality kind of led through, and it kept going throughout the year, and it really benefited me. And I started to learn more about racing that style more than just the tactical style that I was racing in college.
Yeah, and I think that really shone through. A lot of guys, when they start their year off, or they're in their sort of early years of their professional career, you see the indoor season sort of get used as this, okay, we'll see how training's been working out, we'll see how everything's panned out. But you came out pretty much fresh out of the gate and had that incredibly quick 1500, up against Jake Whiteman and some other really big names. I know it's probably another process that Australians aren't super familiar with. You have this big pocket of collegiate success, under Mick Byrne. You've got a really, really good base there at Wisconsin. And then you have this transition of, becoming a professional and running for On. And, with that, you get a new training group and you get a new coach as well. So what was it like sort of forming that relationship with Dathan and him sort of instilling that confidence in you to really get after the season from the get-go?
Yeah, it was extremely interesting. I mean, at that point in time, I was very questioning what I was going to do, even with COVID hitting. The market for professional athletes at that time wasn't super big. I mean, everything was shutting down, everything was closing up shop, really. And I obviously didn't finish the end of the season, so I didn't have the resume I wanted going out of college. But signing with an agency, with Ray Flynn, and then obviously looking at what's available to me, I was able to look at and they had a very, very exciting pitch. They had a very big, ambitious pitch too, and that was something that I was excited about, but obviously very cautious. It was a very young company at the time, and they told me about this coach that they were interested, called Dathan Ritzenhein. And the second question, well, the two questions I had was what was on and who is Dathan Ritzenhein? And on, I obviously learned a lot about, and I was able to kind of develop good relationships with them, with Steve and Andy Weeding, just learning about the company and what they want to do and their aspirations, but I didn't know much about what Dathan was doing. And obviously I had a couple of Michigan roommates in Wisconsin saying, you don't know who Dathan Ritzenhein is. Like, he was a legend in high school. He had a very big reputation in the States. I don't think many people in Australia would know him, but he was former American 5K record holder, three-time Olympian, had a great 207 marathon runner. He had a great career, and he had a very, very career of up and downs, and dealing with a lot of adversity through injuries and stuff like that. So my conversation with Dathan was kind of the cement to make that path, to really take on a position running for On and being a part of that team, because he really gave me the certainty that I could be a great middle distance runner. Because the question I asked him, he was a very distance heavy athlete. What do you want to coach a guy for low 330s? He said, look, I worked with Centro in Oregon as a volunteer. I'm really excited about working with that type of event. I've got these training programs. I've worked with these people. And he really, a lot of athletes don't transition to coaches, aren't always great coaches, but he was fantastic, very, very personable. And straight away from the phone, we had a great relationship, and it was similar to one I had with my college coach. And that was something that was exciting about it. So we really he was taking a big risk too. He was moving his whole family from Michigan to Colorado. So we were all jumping into this idea, and we wanted to create something and build a foundation that was the OAC, and to be not just a mediocre running group in America. We wanted to be one of the best groups in the world and produce the best talent from around the world. So that was their goal, and we really just took it from there and really had that belief behind us, and it really kind of fueled the flame for, let's show what we can do. And I think that was the fun thing about racing, was we every race we got was an opportunity to show who we were and what we were, because people were definitely looking at us going, who is this group? So that was exciting about that.
Yeah, I know there was a bit of chatter back home when the sort of debut speed suit got ran out at most of the meets. I think that was good to see. I think there's that real dialogue, especially back in Australia, around what are professional running groups supposed to be? How should they be shaped? What are their athletes sort of owe anyone who's a fan or the brand itself? And how should they carry themselves? But I think if anyone hasn't seen it yet, if anyone's viewing this and somehow hasn't checked in on Morgan McDonald's content, by all means, go in there with an open mind and check it out. But I guess moving into that group and now having guys like Morgan there and the group, it seems, as far as we can tell, as far as the spectator can tell on social media, do appear to genuinely get along really well and have all sort of made that leap of faith. Did you feel like you as an athlete had a lot of involvement in how that, being a new group and how that new content was released? I know those first few videos about the group were a bit of an eye opener for all of us back here.
Yeah, it was fantastic in the way in which we had a very personal relationship with the brand, and because the brand's so small and growing, I mean, they recently just went public, but that was a very exciting thing to be a part of, because they were able to kind of get an inside look of like what is, like you said, a professional running group, what's it supposed to entail. And the one thing that Dathan kind of really cemented in our minds was culture. And that's one thing that we all in the team take very, very seriously. Is I think he learned a lot from his going from project to Brooks Hanson's like culture, success, like what is it all? Can it be a formula for like just a great group that you can have? And he really took that into account. And we had 8 founding members from all different nations. And we just all got on really well. The men's side in particular all came out of college at the same time. We've all raced each other. We all knew each other we never really spent every single day together, particularly on training camps. We never really had that kind of relationship. So from there on, we just we were able to click and we were able to respect each other and really get after it. And when Morgan and a few other additions joined this coming after the US trials, I mean, at that point, the on team was about a 10 to 11, and we had 5 Olympians in our first year.
Yeah.
So that was really exciting. It shows that our results are still there, but our culture was still great. And what you see and what you document is a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of talking smack and a little bit of, bit of notoriety down there. Like, a lot of people have fun with it and really get on each other's nerves and enjoy that kind of aspect. It's much more of a team basis thing that you'd see in a locker room in a rugby or cricket situation. And that's something that I craved growing up as an individual athlete. So it you hit the jackpot because you're with people that you can kind of joke around with, have fun with. But when you go and see them race, you really are like they're representing you and you're representing them when we compete. And that was an exciting factor that Dathan really wanted us to think about. And we really enjoyed that aspect. And the whole idea of that group was to really perform at the highest level, but also have fun doing it and enjoy and represent a brand on that world stage that they haven't really been on, which was track and field.
Yeah, and I think touching a few of the points you've touched on there, it is really common for groups to sort of have that line about, wanting to have the best athletes in the world or trying to be the best in the world. But, as you've pointed out, and I know Morgan's touched on it a little bit as well, there's a big gap to then actually doing that or sort of keeping those actions up when you are on a track, basically. But it'd be really interesting to hear, you were in a unique predicament in 2021 in that, there was a lot of talk about that discretion factor and how you would get picked for the team. But if ever there was a way to put things sort of out of reach and just ram things home as hard as possible, how did sort of, you've got this new relationship with Dathan, you're having pacemakers head out in sort of 151, 152 every race, and you were sort of kicking goals in each race, so to speak. But was that sort of a bit of a stressful period with all these new things happening, and then you're like, right, I've got to run really well?
Yeah, 100%. And it's nothing like if the situation was reversed and there was no COVID, I mean, I'd be home competing. And like, the one thing that was exciting for me was seeing how well Jai Edwards was doing, Stuart McSwain, Matt Ramsden, like all these guys were just running amazing. And it was something to me that's like, oh wow, Australia can actually, have a bit of a footprint on the athletic world. And that was exciting. And obviously it put me under pressure as well. So I think for me, going in, I mean, Dathan and I would always talk about, he's like, you can't control that. You got to let it go. Like, people will critique you not coming home, not doing the 2-week quarantine before the trials. That will happen. The best thing you can do is, what can you control? You race really, really fast. Try and get paces out, run as fast as you can. Try and get in these higher domestic American meets. Try and win races. Just show them that you are capable to hopefully represent this team. We do all we can, and then when we've done enough and the selection criteria says someone else gets picked, then at least you know that you've done everything you can considering the circumstances. So when Gateshead Diamond League came up, and I knew Stewie and Rambo and other, people were saying that would be a good indication of head-to-head competition. That was something I jumped at, because then it gives every guy in that field opportunity to have that race and to have that, fulfillment. Because if you didn't have that interaction, it's not as fulfilling to say, oh, like, he didn't run against him, he didn't run against him at that situation. So that was a big thing for me, was Gateshead Diamond League. Even though it was my debut Diamond League, it was much more of a trials for me, Australian trials, competing against those guys. And it was tough. I was so stressed the entire time. I mean, I was at the US trials supporting my team. And at that point we had Joe make the team. We had Alicia make the team. Leah, unfortunately, had a bad fall and she was in position to make it after all the heartbreak she's had. And that's all documented on the docuseries. But behind the scenes, we had me and Morgan and everyone, like, we're just waiting to hear from Athletics Australia. We're training really hard, but we don't know. And these guys have been training really hard and they've got selected and they know. And that for us was like, oh, really need to find out. Like, even if it's a yes or a no, I really need to find out soon. So that was a tough and stressful period, but it was a period that we had to take on as athletes. Like, we chose that situation. That was what we decided to do. And what if I wouldn't have done it differently? I had so many great opportunities to race, amazing people. I ran incredible times during that period, and I was able to kind of keep it continuing. And I think the one thing that I wanted to prove was that I'm not just capable from Olympics, but Olympics onwards, I was still learning a lot and progressing and enjoying competing at that level.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the biggest things to take away from Gateshead was that we did see a lot of athletes that really did struggle with the conditions. If anyone hasn't seen the race, check it out on YouTube. It was, driving rain, really cold, very windy, which, look, Britain, possibly par for the course.
Yeah.
But more the fact that, you go in there, you've got all this sort of added, sort of maybe in the back of your mind stress of, okay, there's a lot of Aussies in this race. I'd like to do well. Not only that, but you sort of got 200 metres to go. You take the move past Stewie. You roll up on Jakob Ingebrigtsen's shoulder. And I know a lot of people have probably thought about this in their head, or it's sort of played out on like a long run. You think, oh, this would be nice. Like, I've got 100 to go, Diamond League, could win. Like, you made the move. Like, was that something, like, as it was happening, did you think, hey, this is exciting? Or was that you were just sort of in that race mindset?
Yeah, it was really exciting. It was exciting competing against Stewie because I at that point never competed against him. And I watched him throughout just running. He was doing 3:30, 3:31s. Like, he was doing it well before most people, just being like, that's the way he wanted to race and that's the way he was succeeding in racing. And Gateshead was much more of a fast, tactical, really horrible condition race. It was a very weird race, but it was exciting. And then I think the one advice I got from Dathan, I mean, we didn't really sleep much before because we flew in and then flew out very quickly because with the COVID protocols with the US and being a foreigner here. But yeah, it was at that point Dathan's like, look, you line up on the line, you can beat everyone there. Jakob Ingebrigtsen's there, Stewie's there, Rambo's there, they're all there. Just go and race. And that was my mindset. And then when it was 100 to go and the headwind hit me and kind of Jakob and he got away, but I was trying to keep it with him. That was kind of an exciting moment because I was like, I see this guy on TV like just ripping heads off other guys and I'm running with him. I think that was probably the first race where I gained confidence to be able to run in races like that in Diamond Leagues. And then particularly in the stages at the Tokyo Olympics, it's like he's right there. I can see him. It's not like I can't go through and stay with it and be competitive. So that's been an indication for me. Is like, yeah, I'm capable.
Yeah, definitely in making those jumps race to race, was that something sort of conscious? You get to Tokyo, it's sort of the stress of the entire year, just that process of getting there, and even with COVID and everything floating around, making sure you could get there. Australia's been in this position historically where when Ryan Gregson made the final in 2016, it was massive because we hadn't had anyone in a final for decades. Then you line up and we've basically got three guys there that are all prospects to make it into a final, and you progress through the heat, you progress through the semi. I know you made a comment afterwards that you felt like almost the social media of it, or you were kind of surprised how much your phone blew up, and sort of that, I guess, the coping mechanisms that you sort of had to deal with or develop through that Olympic process. What was it like, sort of that day to day going through that village sort of experience and getting to race, and in your head you're thinking, well, I'm still here to try and make a final.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I actually felt like I was back in Australia. I was only in the delegation of Australians, and I was hanging around Australians. And then when I actually left, I got in a bus with Americans, and I heard the accent so poignant. I'm like, oh no, I'm going back to America. It was very fun because I saw, like, I have a high school friend, Rowan Browning. I hadn't seen him yet, and like we were able to hang out throughout the Diamond League circuit afterwards. But like I was seeing him, I was seeing people that I've seen in the track and field world for a very long time, and that was a very exciting thing, and that was fun. I really enjoyed that. But then I noticed you couldn't really get away from what the event was, and that's the way the Olympics is. Even with COVID, it was more pressurized. Like, I think I couldn't mentally switch off from the racing. Every round was very intense. We had, they're very quick. I mean, they broke the Olympic record in the semi-final. So the races were intense. They were hard. I mean, like, it was something that I have never experienced before, and I've never been to a major championships before. I've never represented Australia before. So this time around, I was like, okay, I need to, whatever happens, it's growth. You got to learn from these things. And I think every time I went through a step, I just couldn't switch off, and my phone was blowing up. And I thought, it's fine. Like, I'll talk to family and friends. And I think at that point, I should have probably been away from the phone more often and been able to go outside, go for a walk, and get away from things. Really switch my mind off. I got some good advice from Nick Willis, who's been to many of these Olympics, and he said, like, just get obsessed with something other than running, like reading or something. Just really, because particularly when you're in the village, it really doesn't get away from you, and it can overwhelm you. And I think when I got to the final, I just really, mentally was just absolutely fried. But physically wasn't drained, just didn't tactically perform the race I should have. Still very proud of what I was able to do. My first Olympics, make a final in the 1500 with one of the best fields I've ever seen. And to do it with Stewie too was an amazing experience, and to be able to kind of show Australians that it is possible to just not just get one but multiple in every Olympics. That's something we should be inspired to. But day-to-day living, it was very hard to get away from it. But the delegation did a great job. Like, it was a great setup. We had a barista machine there. I was with Morgan. Like Morgan and I have known each other since we were 10, so it's been really nice to be able to like go through this journey together, and we know each other so well that it felt like routine. And that was a great thing about it. But I think with the COVID and not being able to kind of get around, you're very, very restricted with what you can do. The testing was fine and everything. They were fantastic with that. But it was just more or less like you can't leave the village. You can't go for a walk. You're very much inside the games, and you're just competing, and then you leave. So that to me was a new experience, and I definitely learned a lot from that. And hopefully moving forward, particularly going into Paris or going to the World Champs this year, if I'm fortunate enough to get selected, that would be a big mindset to go into, to learn from that, and to see how I do again in that situation.
Yeah, and I think that's really been the contrast, looking at, some of the footage of yourself in interviews or in some of those more laid back scenarios. You don't strike me as like a very uptight guy or someone that's like very easily stressed. But then, we've got this environment that we're getting used to in World 1500 meter running, where, the level is so high and everyone is so good that, you do have like the younger fella from Luxembourg, whose name escapes me at the moment, that that dive into the final, and there doesn't really seem to be any room for error. So I guess, how do you deal with that mentally, in terms of going from someone who seems quite laid back day to day to having to be really switched on for those big 1500 races?
Well, I've always been competitive by nature, so it's been able to switch on to that mindset. I was joking around with Whiteman and Kerr and stuff, like as soon as the race is done, or like before the race, we'll be mucking around. But the nice thing about, I think, the way I've been able to think is the switch has really helped. I've been able to kind of switch on. It's like, this is business. I want to get this done. And my mindset, my racing instinct has always been there. It was just, I think the intensity of it is that you make a mistake, you're gonna stuff up. It was like in the Olympic final, I went to the front thinking that because most of the races I went into, you couldn't get a position near that front pack. You would kind of push back, and then it kind of starts to pick up. And then I went to the front and realized that there was no one there. And I knew in my head that I made a huge mistake, and that could be it. But I didn't completely cave into that. I kind of just held on, and then I kind of slowly started to burn out a little bit mentally. But I ran 3:35 still, and I finished 11th behind Whiteman. Like, I still had a okay race. It wasn't just complete burnout, but I think like mistakes that you make can really just, in a field like that, you get eaten alive. So, which is a good thing. 1500 is such a short race too, that tactical errors usually, when it's that quick, are quite detrimental to your performance. And the more races I did after, like with Brussels and with Zurich, I was learning to be able to run in that front pack and be at the front and try and be competitive and to the very end. And I think that proves that I've learned something from Tokyo in some way, in that intensity, and to be able to learn that, those mistakes might happen. Let's learn from them, and let's make sure that they minimize and they don't happen again.
Yeah, and in that you sort of have established yourself so quickly in those top tier races, was it a bit of a shock? You come off this massive emotional high that's the Olympic Games. It's something that anyone who's ever sort of laced up a pair of shoes is sort of back of the mind. You think, oh, geez, it'd be good to make it there. You go from that, and then you're off to Brussels and Zurich, and they've got like quite full crowds again. Was it a bit confronting and sort of was it exciting having those massive crowds back for the sport?
Yeah, it definitely was. The biggest crowd I had from then was Gateshead, which was a very minimal crowd with COVID, and then Brussels was massive. It was I think it's a 40,000 stadium, but 20,000 allowed in. Still massive, like a massive amount of people, and to have that the roar again and the feeling, like that intensity you get, you lose that. And in Tokyo, it did feel a bit like a time trial. They did their best job to try and amp it up. They had lights and sound and stuff like that, but nothing beats a crowd and the tension you feel like rumbling on the track. It's just it's addicting. And then moving from Brussels to Zurich, like every race was another intense race with a field of Olympians. Particularly Zurich was exciting because you got world champs, Olympic champs all in that race competing, and it was an amazing stadium. And in Zurich they have these metal sheets around the outside and they're all banging them.
Yeah.
So it's just complete noise. You can't hear anything. Can't even hear the guy breathing next to you. So that intensity coming from Olympic Games to that felt like it was more a refresher into racing, and that was really exciting. And I think me coming from a disappointing final, but not terrible final, to second in Brussels and fourth in Zurich was really exciting to see that I can bounce back and learn and grow from it. And having that crowd around you too is just an icing on the cake. Being able to kind of race in front of people again was very exciting. So I hope to get to do that more often this year.
Yeah, definitely. In solid segue there. In terms of 2022, we've got this sort of smorgasbord of events, and you've probably also got a number of indoor opportunities floating around as well. How do you even start that chat with Dathan about what you sort of juggle between world indoors and comms? You've gone from a guy that's like, oh, it'd be great to get picked for the Olympics. You start knocking out these huge times, and now it's like, oh, great, I've got this embarrassment of riches. Sort of, what do you plan from here? Yeah,
I mean, it's exciting because I know Dathan talks to me about it. He really, like, the world indoors is very exciting to him because I love indoor racing and I'm quite good at it. I mean, that race in New York, New Balance with Whiteman, my boy Whiteman, was great. And running that quick, I mean, it's only a bit off the world record in the 1500. He really thinks like, you know what, you can run fast there. We think Milrose will be great, get close to 350 under, even get close to world record time. People are going to be going for it. And it's a world championship, If an Australian's medaling at a world championship, it looks pretty good starting off the start of the year. So that is our mindset. We'll have a couple of indoor opportunities. We'll go into Worlds if I get selected and compete for Australia there. And then the time frame, I think, with the quarantine situation in Australia, if that's the way it is, I think it's going to be by November 1st, and I would come home and compete for the trials if there's no issues. I know Perth, I think, is still under lockdown, and that's where they're holding the Australian Championships right now. But talking to AA and having that clear communication, like, we're just going to be figuring out as it goes along because the situation is just fluid with the way COVID is, and that's a great way to be able to do it, is just to be able to keep in communication with them, which has been very fortunate. And then from then on, obviously, we'll be competing in some diamond leagues, maybe mixing it up a little bit, try and race some 800s, some 5Ks. And then Eugene would be fantastic to make that team, and then Com Games in Birmingham 10 days later. It'd just be like rallying from a hangover, just getting after it and going for it. And that'll be really fun because I think that'll really show strength in a lot of athletes. And I think particularly in the 1500, it'll be exciting to see people kind of do well at, maybe they don't do well at Worlds, but they could do really well at Com Games or vice versa. They do well in both. That'll be a very exciting time. And I think if you're a track fan during this year, it's going to be a lot of fun because you're going to see a lot more races and a lot more excitement coming through there. So, that would probably be us. I would really love to go home for the trials too. But yeah, I mean, just depending on the situation with the lockdown and everything like that, we'd have to see what happens. I know Worlds would be awesome. I think it's going to be in a freezing place somewhere in Europe, but I'm really excited for this season. Serbia, yeah. So I'm really excited for this year because I think there's going to be a lot of great Australian performances, not just in middle distance, but in everything. So it's going to be a good year for us.
Yeah, I guess, look, you've been super generous with your time. I was just sort of, the last bit I wanted to touch on was, you mentioned there that you've known Morgan since you were about 10, and now you've gone through the same college, and it's a question that's too easy to line up. Is that, does it ever strike you just the sheer odds of both of you now being, in this sort of, this super exciting generation of Australian runners? You're on the same team. Morgan's got his coffee club ticking away week to week. You got the dog, you got the Tesla, you got the house. Like, you must really feel like you've established this sort of life over there in the States.
Yeah, we're very lucky, very fortunate. But I mean, we've both come from a very hardworking and competitive mentality. And I mean, I watched Morgan growing up and then been able to learn a lot from him, and he's learned a lot from me as well. Like, we've had a great relationship with our running, and running we've been so fortunate. We've met so many amazing people and been and done so many amazing things. And like, I think for us, like we want to kind of promote the sport and give back as much as we can. Like I think with the coffee club that Morgan, myself, and Geordie Beamish is a New Zealand boy that we do, we really enjoy doing that and being able to talk about a lot of things that people might not necessarily know about around running and just have it that conversation, that kind of candy chat that I think Australians always do when they have a cup of coffee and relax and chill out and enjoy each other's company. And that was something that we wanted to bring in, and his YouTube channel and everything like that was just giving awareness of, because we've noticed that, well, you never think that there's going to be fans in the sport, particularly in running, but once you get there, there's always people asking these amazing questions and questions that make you think, and it makes you excited that the journey that we've had, we've learned so much, but the resources that we can give back would be an exciting thing for not just high schoolers in Australia that maybe want to go to college in the US, or runners in Australia wanting to improve, marathon times or 10K times, looking for resources, looking for people to talk to that we might know, is an exciting thing. And being able to connect the world more with that and being able to be open and transparent with it is something that we're really excited about doing. So Coffee Club's been fun, and with Gus and everything. But it's been a great time. We've had, I think that's one thing, is it's only a short period of your life, just being able to have the privilege of running. So we're just having a great time with it and enjoying it, and hopefully doing the best we possibly can and representing the best we possibly can. So,
mate, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us. I know you've probably got a fair bit on, but look, if anyone's going to find out a bit more about Ollie Hoare and the On Athletic Club, feel free to check out their YouTube. They've got some really well-produced content on there. And then if you're looking for some more authentic, more sort of face-to-face content, check out Morgan McDonald's channel. He's got some pretty entertaining stuff there. If anyone's ever wondered how an Olympian comes back at their sort of first jog at about 9,000 feet of altitude, he's got that up there as well. But
he does.
Massive thanks for coming on with us, Ollie. We'll let you go.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys' time.
Well, that was really great talking to Ollie. I think we've all learnt a lot about what it takes to race at the top level of 1500 metre running at the moment. I know you've heard this stuff before, but if you did enjoy the content you've seen today, please make sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really supports us in being able to keep producing this content. We'll catch you next time on Running Things.